It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mainz and Dutch. I'm your host, Mainz, and my colleague, a man who remembers when Chad Pennington and the Manning brothers were football players, not fathers of college players. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
It is a depressing reminder of the inevitable march of time. See, there's another one that I was watching, the West Indies against Pakistan in T20 the other day, and there was a lad called, I think it was Donovan Drakes, was playing for the West Indies. It was his international debut. Now, it's not just that I remember his dad playing, it's that I remember his dad's debut. I mean, I don't remember Pennington and Manning being drafted, but obviously I started watching them very early in their careers.
I do, so F you.
Yeah. But yeah, we old as.
We old as, indeed. Big week this week. Either your final week of your fantasy season or your first round semi-final matchup. I've somehow lived in a world where we've gone for the extra week of regular season play, which benefits me in no way and only puts me in peril, not in a good way. So, like, in theory, if the season was over, I've made 2 playoffs as the 2 seed, and now there's a chance I come into the 3rd seed and also miss the playoffs.
See, in one of my main leagues, not the main league, but one of them, I do actually have a first round bye, so which is good, as I'm not entirely sure. I lost last week, but I had won 7 on the spin, which is all the more impressive considering I've done it by streaming my quarterback. Because I bought in earlier, during the draft, I thought, do you know what? It would be great if I linked up Calvin Ridley and Matt Ryan. That'll work.
That's not
Reader, it did not work.
Yeah. And I wish everybody in their fantasy players, I'm sure we'll talk fantasy darlings later, and I'm hoping they will be streamers, because with all the COVID protocols running through certain teams, I know Washington is one, Cleveland is another, the teams are riddled. It's an easier way to... I'm hoping that Schefter and Rappaport on Saturday and Sunday just name players available rather than players unavailable, because it'll probably take less characters.
Well, I mean, we could cut to the chase now, and I could say that my fantasy darlings this week are me, you, and Marcus Grant.
Yeah, makes sense.
And, you know, the fantasy loser to avoid is probably Matthew Berry, because he's a Washington fan, so we should probably steer clear of it.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Before we do that, we're going to plug into the mains. We're going to look in the shadows, and what I mean by looking in the shadows, we're going to look at guys who are hiding behind ineptitude, thanking God that someone is worse than them, so they are avoiding the heat that should be upon them, but it's not. Then obviously fancy darlings, fancy losers, and fancy predictions bound to go wrong. Neil on fire with his fancy loser, and I expect that to continue. Fancy darling doing great. Fantasy predictions bound to go wrong are indeed bound to go wrong. But on that note, let us move on. Let's plug into the mains and let's find out who those guys in the shadows are. So Neil proposed this grouping to me, and it basically what this is are players who are glad other players or coaches or teams are happy these other teams, players or coaches exist, because if they didn't, they would be heavy in the spotlight and heavier criticism. But luckily they do, so therefore I've avoided it. Neil, the aforementioned Matt Ryan is first, and that is the aforementioned Matt Ryan is glad Ben Roethlisberger is a thing. Explain.
Well, everyone has fallen over themselves to say how bad Ben Roethlisberger has played for the best part of 3 years. I've been one of these people. He looks cooked. Yeah, he's putting up some nice numbers lately. Doesn't matter. He looks cooked. He's come out and said, this might be my last season. Really, Ben? You said this in 2015. Believe when see it. Please retire, but I'll believe it when I see it. If you watch the Atlanta Falcons on a regular basis, if you do, thoughts and prayers, but this is not your dad's Matt Ryan. He looks bad. He's routinely underthrowing his receivers. He's not in the Jimmy Garoppolo hospital pass class.
Hall of Fame.
My gee God, Jimmy Garoppolo has put more people in hospital than a paramedic with 40 years service. So it's like, my God, man, aim for the numbers. Not the numbers on the pitch, the numbers in between them so I can catch it comfortably. Yeah, but Matt Ryan does not look good. The offense itself is not... I don't think this is what Arthur Smith wants.
If this is what Arthur Smith wants, it may be time to look at a new head coach after 15 games or whatever.
But ultimately, this is the problem when you take a tight end with the 4th overall, when your quarterback is old and looking older, and you're tied to him at least for the next 2 years. If Matt Ryan is praying that Roethlisberger saddles up one more time, because otherwise next year he's going to look utter dog shit.
He probably will do. The Atlanta Falcons thought they were still in a window when they weren't, then didn't know what they wanted to be when they had the chance, and are now, I believe, in purgatory. Although, as I spoke to Thomas Willoughby, who's resident UK Falcons fan, they are weirdly in playoff contention massively. So
but
put that in your pipe and smoke it.
26 of the 32 teams are within a game of the playoffs. This season, it's going to the wire. Saying someone is still in playoff contention, if you hang your hat on that this season, then literally you're the type of person who lists the fact that you took general studies as an A-level.
Yeah, I know.
Or cycling proficiency, something like that.
Proficiency. Let us move on. We all know the wonder that is Urban Meyer, a man who's so fucked off with life that he barely recognised that he was speaking to he was shaking hands with a former colleague in Mike Vrabel. What a knob. But I tell you, a man who's lucky that he exists, and that is Matt Rule, as the Carolina Panthers is a total utter shit show, of which he is a major culprit of, and he is not getting anywhere near the criticism that I believe he should.
The Panthers made the rod for their own back when they came out and said, no, we are the team of analytics. No, you're not. You gave a running back a massive second contract. Straight away, you're not a team of analytics. They have tried to readjust on the fly a number of times this season, hence how many things they're throwing at the quarterback wall and hoping it sticks. This bizarre notion of, no, I want to run the ball 33 times a game. Okay, well, do this then. Call run plays the first 33 plays and then see where you are with that. I appreciate that this season we have seen, because of, this discovery of this, hidden key to stop all offenses, the cover 2 shell, that I know that I realised...
Didn't we discover that in 1994?
Possibly. Although Bud Grant actually was running it with the Steelers in the 70s. So, but again, that shows you how secret this thing has been. You do need to run the ball occasionally, because the best way to get the big play is to run teams out of the cover 2 shell. The Bills still haven't got the memo of this. But you do need to run the ball. But coming out with blanket statements like, I want to run the ball 33 times, what an odd number. Round up or round down, dickhead. But yeah, their roster looks awful because they've dicked around with quarterback. And, again, they've probably won too many games to be in play in the draft. So it's a question of, we've seen how reactionary David Tepper seems to be. Which quarterback are they going to fall in love with and overpay for by a trade? Because they're not getting one in free agency, and I don't know if it'll satisfy Tepper's insatiable enthusiasm to compete now to take a rookie.
I just look and think, like, as you quite rightly point out, the most important position in the NFL is quarterback, and you decided you were going to go with Teddy Bridgewater, which I'm okay with, I guess, as a stopgap. Given that you did that, you didn't believe it didn't work, and then decided even though you had a top 10 draft pick, where you could have taken Justin Fields, for example, you decided to waste a second round draft pick on Sam Darnold. That kind of worked under Joe Brady, it looked like, for a little while, until he became, what he is, which is Sam Darnold. You then decided to pay $10 million to a street free agent who you could have paid the league minimum to, who basically I assume would have wanted to come back from Carolina because, you know, that's where he played before. You then fired an offensive coordinator who was seen as a hot offensive coordinator, and I think had done an okay job in the 2 years. You know, not spectacular, but you had given him Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Darnold. And then give me some bullshit about every time we run over 30 times we win a game.
Oh, yeah, still doing this.
But this is what I'm saying, right? Okay then, tell you what, mate. The first 30 plays run every single time, and I bet you don't win. Also, as you quite rightly pointed out, you are example 7 million why you don't give a running back a second contract. When will these fucking teams learn? David Tepper's gonna have an itchy trigger finger, I assume, which leads me to believe that this is, you know, a short life, and Matt Rule should be very, very glad that that Urban Meyer exists.
Scott Pianowski had the best line I've seen about Urban Meyer. Was in college he's an urban legend, but in the NFL he's an urban myth. I like it.
Moving on, Neil. Zach Wilson should be glad of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, Zach Wilson looks terrible. Mechanically, decision-making point of view. I mean, I don't know whether it's fair to say that all these quarterbacks since Joe Namath have failed the Jets, or did the Jets fail them? I don't know. I think with a lot of them, it's a combination. So I'm not ready to come out and say that Zach Wilson looks busted or washed, because, you know, it's far from a perfect situation. But I think a lot of attention is being taken off Zach Wilson because the first overall pick is in danger of having his entire organisation ruin him within the first year of his NFL career. Now, Zach Wilson, I think a lot of people might, tut and, cluck their chins and whatnot and say he shouldn't have been taken second overall in the first place. This is a valid point, a valid criticism. Whereas Trevor Lawrence, put it this way, you'd have to have massive bollocks not to have taken Trevor Lawrence first overall. But the fact of the matter is, you took him first overall and did nothing to help him. And they didn't. It should have been every move the Jaguars made from the second the pick was announced should have been about making themselves the Trevor Lawrence team. Instead, and mostly because of one man, let's be honest, they've gone out of their way to undermine him, make him look inept, and make him, basically make him face challenges that he probably hoped he didn't have to. Like, he shouldn't be, as a rookie, going to the head coach saying, can we actually give the good running back the ball, please? Yeah. He shouldn't be going in press conferences after his head coach saying, I can run the quarterback sneak, who said I can't? And then making it look like he's backtracking, he's talking out of turn. It's ridiculous what is being piled on him. Now, we all hope that the next regime can come up and fix this situation and actually put him in a position to succeed. But how many first overall picks have we seen landed? I mean, first overall pick is a problem because you're going to a bad team.
Correct.
And bad teams are usually linked to bad organisations. Just a thought. You don't get the Patriots drafting for other teams. Doesn't happen. But it's going to need Shad Khan to come out and basically we're not going to make any rash decisions. No, the rash decision would have been firing him after week 1. This is not a rash decision now, Shad. This is a considered decision for the good of the city of Jacksonville, the whole franchise, and your franchise quarterback. How he's still got a job now, I don't know. But if he somehow, the Jaguars beat the Texans and the Jets in their next 2 games, and that's the start of a new era, congratulations, you played yourself.
Yeah, on the Wilson side of things, it's concerning, right? Because he had those red flags that you were a bit like, is he number 2, or do I like certain things? I know the classic, I think he had that throw in his pro day where, like, the internet collectively.
Fluids load.
Yeah, thank you. I was trying to think of it. Yeah, that'll do. And that's cool and that. But, you know, he was going to the Jets, and I think this is an interesting concept, right? Like the thought experiment of, would Zach Wilson have been good for the New England Patriots if Mac Jones would have gone to the Jets? Do you see what I mean? Like, these are, like, there's a lot of players who you sometimes feel a bit unfortunate for. And I'm always fearful of a rookie defensive head coach with a rookie quarterback. Like, they're not meant to be friends. And I'm not... They seem to have the shit LaFleur, which is not great. You know, what can you do, I guess? But I'm really concerned for Jets fans that you're just back in that same old, you know, shit show that you've always been in. Moving on, Neil. I'm assuming there's been a lot of noise about Mahomes and the Chiefs' offense and how it struggled in recent weeks, which I assume is hiding America's team and the performances of Dak and Zeke in recent weeks, specifically Zeke, although Dak was absolutely garbage against the Washington football team.
Absolutely terrible. The pick six he threw. Good God, man! What did seriously? That's one conversation. Like, it'd be like, what did you see, or more importantly, what didn't you see? And now explain it to me like I'm five. Why one of the highest paid players, in the sport makes that decision? Ezekiel Elliott. I'm terribly sorry. They're saying he's hurt, and I think it looked like they tried to give him some rest against Washington, but then things started going arse over tit. Yeah. It's like, look, we need to close this. We're going to have to put Zeke back in, and it's a bit short-term thinking because again they couldn't, and it was basically Washington pissed that away. Now, from an Eagles point of view, I'm glad they did, because it's better for the Eagles' wildcard chances if Washington falter than vainly hoping they can catch Dallas.
Yes, of course.
But I digress. That it was 24-0. Was it 21-0, whatnot?
Yeah, 24, yeah.
I put out one of my favourite, GIFs, the Jasper from The Simpsons, oh, that's a paddling, and all of a sudden, it was like, what the hell's happened here? The offense has gone off. The defense is making plays, but the defense makes plays. It gives up points, but it still makes plays. And it was just like, okay, you remember when this offense was great? Can we go back to that? Can the quarterback look as if he's mobile? I mean, he looks slow when he's moving in the pocket or when he's scrambling. He looks very slow, Prescott. Elliott looks slow, full stop.
I think this is, well, Zeke is the standard. It's the same Christian McCaffrey reason. Do not give these people a second contract. It doesn't make any sense. It's why you don't draft them high. So the mistake is drafting Zeke high and then you double down by giving him another contract when the most explosive running back is Tony Pollard, who I think he got in the 4th or 5th round. Hello? Like, this is what we're saying. Dak, since last year's injury, has refused to run, just flat out refused to run, and I can kind of understand that his ankle was facing in the wrong direction. I've got no problem with that, it's fine. Mm-hmm. There have been rumours or highlighted of issues with his calf, and I do wonder if that means he hasn't been able to step into throws, and that's why you see that throw to Cole Holcomb. I don't think it was to Cole, well, it went directly to him and he did a pick six. But I do look at that and think, oh, this is an issue. I think they have, as you quite rightly pointed out, I can't see them not winning the division. I mean, they've still got to play Washington again. They play Philly once again. And
it's week 18, yeah.
Yeah, and they play the Giants.
I think they've got the Cardinals as well.
Yeah, but what I mean is, all they got to do is win one or two of them games and they win the division, right? And I don't see why that wouldn't happen. So I don't think it's a major issue for them. The Chiefs, on the other hand, however good their defense is playing, I would like to think they're going to need to score mid-20s points, and I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, the guy who kind of reinvented cover 2 shell is going to stop doing cover 2 shell to play what bullshit the Raiders play.
Is there a chance, however small, the Big Red and the Chiefs are pulling the biggest rope-a-dope in modern NFL history on us, that they know how to beat cover 2, but they don't want to show it now? They know they can get by on the defense and do just enough on offense to when it comes to when the playoff bullets start flying, then they're going to slip it. Is there a chance?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you've asked is Andy Reid, Bill Belichick. That's basically what you asked me, and I don't believe he is. If it was me, like, I'm the opposite of this. I'd be fucking this bullshit off in week 2. Here's 50 points on you. Don't throw this at me again. Get this nonsense out of my face. But, Andy knows better than me. So, yeah, it's feasible. I look forward to the matchup between Justin Herbert and Tyrann Mathieu. That should be fun. I hope this week the cameraman can keep up with Justin Herbert's throws. That's all I'm saying on the matter.
Have you seen the screenshots? I think it might have been young Solak who showed the cameraman and So this is the fella you're aiming at then, who's like wide open on the third. Yeah. Oh no, you're going deeper.
Correct.
I mean, we are blessed at the moment that we do have 3 quarterbacks. 4 if we go with Matt Stafford, who not only have they got incredible arm strength, but also have the arm talent to not only see that throw, but think, I'm doing this.
You look at the Rams Cardinals games, and there was 1 from Murray and 2 from Stafford, which are just behave yourself type throws. Now that doesn't mean they are the best quarterbacks. That no one's saying that, right? And they've definitely got issues, and they always have had. Especially Stafford. He's good. He's good, not great. But there's not many who can do the hard play action and hit that throw to Van Jefferson. Tom Brady may be better. Other quarterbacks may be more efficient, right? But not many of them can hit that howitzer. Now that doesn't mean that Matthew Stafford is better than those people. That's just a fact that God gave you that talent. It's not something that you can just learn.
Yeah, Mark Schofield describes those throws as this friggin' guy.
Exactly right. Because if you're a corner, you'd be like, "Nah, I can't make." Oh, he's made that throw. Like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, I've literally done everything humanly possible to stop it, but I couldn't.
Correct. Final one, Neil. Joe Judge is glad that Matt Nagy exists, because those are newish head coaches into second or third, both third year, I think. Or Judge's second, is he? And
Judge's second year. Nagy has been here since 2018.
Oh my God! For the love of all of this, Chicago. But how Joe Judge? I mean, the New York Giants, I don't know, for those who are unaware, are based in the largest media market in the United States of America, and are a complete and utter irrelevance that no one ever talks about. And that is down solely to poor play, poor decision making, and a joke of a head coach.
I could be wrong, but I'm not even sure they've won a playoff game since their last Super Bowl win.
I don't think they have.
I know that they've, since the photo on the boat, they have the worst record in the NFL. I think second worst after the Jets. That was 2016, and that was just before they were playing a playoff game against the Green Bay Packers. How many things have changed since then. The Jets know they're shite. The Giants delude themselves. I mean, I'm still pissing myself about how the Eagles tanking against Washington in Week 17 was such an affront to the Giants that as a protest, they've then spent the entire 2021 season being shit.
Yep, it's worked. Their last playoff victory was Sunday the 5th of February 2012, when they beat the New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. Since then, they have had one playoff game, which was a 38-13 loss to the Green Bay Packers in 2017.
Yeah, and they were up in that game, but then they decided they were just going to leave Randall Cobb clear on a Hail Mary, I believe, at the end of the first half. And so it's nearly 10 years since they last won a playoff game. They've had one playoff game total since then. The Bears have, I was saying to you the other day, the Bears have had one 10-win season since they fired Lovie Smith. Well, they fired Lovie Smith in 2012. And, they fired Trestman 2 years after that because, and I quote, "This organisation will not tolerate mediocrity." Now you will.
You have
but the Giants will tolerate it as well. Both teams have massive issues, and the Giants have no money next year. So whoever comes in, it's like, okay, we don't know about our quarterback. We've got a lot of high-priced free agents that we really, really wish we hadn't paid, but we can't really get rid of.
This is the issue on these teams where you think you're close. Like, say, for example, Washington, the NFC East last year, Washington win and the Giants didn't. And I look at Spot Rack and the like, and only, I think, 3 teams have more cap space next year than Washington. And I think the Giants have about £3.50 in a bag of nuts. And they're going in with Daniel Jones on his 5th-year option, I think. And Saquon Barkley, who, like, I don't care what anyone says, has got to be seen in the top 10 busts of the past decade.
Yeah.
Might look good in that, but guess what? It's never worked.
By the way, I was just thinking of this in terms of free agency. This is a totally different subject. Free agency. The Chargers have a large chunk of change.
They do. They are number 1 at the moment, I believe.
Can you imagine Chris Godwin in Chargers?
Oh.
Go on. Win your second ring with Tampa Bay. Now cash in. Go and play with Justin Herbert alongside Keenan Allen.
Wow.
Works for me.
On that note, Neil, I think we should drift into fantasy because that's where we've just been.
Yeah,
and we'll start with Fancy Darling.
Hello, darling.
So Neil, last week, we went 2-1, or you went 2-1. You picked Taysom Hill, in a don't watch but look at the points kind of tastic way. Taysom Hill was quarterback 6. He threw for 175 yards.
Yes, he did.
73 yards and 2 touchdowns. Wow. That's a win though, so who cares? You picked Tyler Conklin. He didn't win. He was tight end 30. He only had 4 points. You also picked the Seahawks defense. They were defense 10-12 in tie, 6 points. So that's a win because it's a first round. Defense, although I guess they didn't do as well as we expected because I believe Davis Mills completed his first 13 passes. But hey ho.
You can only hope to slow down Davis Mills.
Correct.
You can't
That
stop
is very
him.
true. That is very true. So, without further ado, Neil, who was your first pick this week?
I was tempted to go back to the Taysom Hill but they're playing the Buccaneers. And while I know Taysom always delivers eventually, it scares me. So, how about we go all out, balls to the wall, let's have some fun, and say Justin Fields. Now, Justin Fields, since week 8, has averaged almost 20 fantasy points per game, and you have to factor in that there's a game in there that he only played half of the snaps against the Ravens because he came out injured. Now, he's only passed for 200 yards in a game 3 times all season. But since week 6, in games he's played, obviously, he's averaging 7.5 rushing attempts per game, and he's usually good for about 30 to 40 yards. Well, 40 yards, as we know, in 4-point passing touchdowns. That's a passing touchdown score for you. So the Vikings are playing the Bears because, again, this is another primetime game because, again, we needed the Bears on primetime every single week. The Vikings have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to quarterbacks this season, as well as the 9th most rushing yards. So I think if you need a quarterback this week, Justin Fields has shown he does have a good floor. If he could just stop throwing stupid interceptions, that'd be great.
Number 2, Neil.
Number 2, and I've had to break the habit of a lifetime. I cannot recommend a tight end here. Obviously, I've written my tight end streamers for out of his, but I couldn't put one here because it's dire out there. So, if you are in the market for a wide receiver 3 or flex, then I like Jamison Crowder this week. Now, I know it's not exciting in the slightest, but Crowder was averaging 6.5 targets per game when Elijah Moore and Corey Davis were playing. They're not here anymore. They're both on IR. They're done for the season. The Jets are playing the Dolphins this week. The Dolphins have allowed the 4th most receiving yards to wide receivers this season among all NFL teams. And Crowder plays in the slot, which means he'll likely avoid Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. So if they can scheme up some layups for Zach Wilson and he can hit them, then Crowder could make a little bit of noise this week. Obviously, the person that basically I'm screaming out for Crowder here to be the second coming of Hunter Renfrow, but as Hunter Renfrow is the second coming of Jerry Rice,
yes, of course.
Most people have already rostered Renfrow. So,
and finally, Neil, number 3.
Number 3, it's kicking while it's down, but I've gone with the Eagles defense. The Eagles are playing Washington this week, and the entire city of Washington, all the federal, all the employees, everyone seems to be on the COVID list. I've read reports from Hogs Haven, the SB Nation site, who said basically we'll call this a forfeit.
I think at some point I'm interested to understand, not just for Washington, but I guess for Cleveland, who are playing the Raiders. What's the number? Like, what's the number that tips you from, like, oh, you can just get another street free agent, to there's not enough humans who can play football to allow us to pick a 52-man roster, so any chance we can have a postponement? I literally don't know what that is.
I mean, I'm not just saying this the Eagles because Washington are ravaged. There is some background behind it. The Eagles' defense have scored at least 6 fantasy points in 5 of their last 6. They have double figures fantasy points in 3 of those games. They've held opposition offenses to less than 20 points in 4 of the last 6 games. So it's as our friend Denny Carter would say, the process. It's a good pick, but if Kyle Allen can't play, can he? I think he's on the COVID list. Taylor Heineke is hurt, so if he plays, he's going to be toughing it out. It doesn't look pleasant for Washington, and as much as I sympathise, if you need a defence this week, you should go and get the Eagles.
Absolutely, Neil. Absolutely. Let's move on. Speaking of Washington losers, let's get on to fantasy loser. Ironically, Neil, you picked on Washington as your fancy loser last week. You picked Antonio Gibson, and you absolutely nailed it. Running back 43 was last week, 4.1 points, 36 rushing yards and 2 catches for 5 yards, and that's a massive win for you. Washington couldn't do anything on offense until the Cowboys went to sleep. You're now 10-4 as fancy losers, so absolutely spectacular stuff. Who have you got this week?
Aaron Jones and his situation worry me because it's now clear it's not his backfield alone, and you start thinking, well, if they get up big, then they'll turn to AJ Dillon to be the closer. But if it's still a competitive game, then Jones is going to split time with Dillon, who looks good. He looks sprightly. He's better than expected in the passing game because he came in from Boston College where they don't throw.
Yep.
Well,
Steve Adazio didn't throw yet, absolutely.
Yeah, I think the last Boston College quarterback to throw a pass was Matt Ryan. So we've seen that Dillon is a more than adequate 2 to Jones's 1, but he's incurring into Jones's airspace, so Jones doesn't have all the work to himself. So speaking of someone who has in one league, I do have Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon rostered. The scary thing is, do I pick one of them? Do I pick both of them? If I pick both of them, then I'm basically playing one position, 2 players into one position. If I pick one of them, I'm running the risk of the other one going off. If I pick neither of them, I'm shooting myself in the foot, because they're still ridiculously productive players in one of the best offenses in the league. But I don't think you can start Jones with confidence that he's going to be a running back 1 unless he hits pay dirt and scores touchdowns. And touchdowns, as we know, are a fluky statistic that are team stats more than player stats. So you can start him, but I don't think he's going to be a running back 1 this week.
No, I, as someone who drafted A.J. Dillon in a fancy draft and was laughed by many people because they described him as a fullback. FU, I'm the winner and I'm 9-5. So go bite how are those apples.
Godzilla doesn't play that game.
He doesn't know. Right, let's move on and let's talk about fancy predictions that are bound to go wrong. Neil, last week you said that Patrick Mahomes would be QB1. He was actually QB11. Not bad. 258 yards and 2 scores. I piggybacked off the back of that, assuming that if Patrick Mahomes was good, then Tyreek Hill would be good. He wasn't. He had 4 catches for 76 yards and was wide receiver 44. The Travis Kelce era is also close to being over, I think. Like, as in the massive consensus one, you have to pick him early. He may be the first tight end taken, but I assume he's not the first tight end taken as high in drafts as he has been in recent years, because he's still the number 1, but he's not scoring elite points.
He's actually not the tight end 1 now. Mark Andrews, after his incredible performance last week, has overtaken him. Kelce has finished every season as the tight end 1 since 2015. Not going to happen this year.
Not going to happen. Doesn't look like it's going to happen this year. Picks this week, Neil. I am going to pick a quarterback in one of the Saturday games to throw for 300 yards and multiple touchdowns. That quarterback is McCorkle Jones of the New England Patriots, because as we all know, after all the frickin' noise around the Patriots' victory over the Buffalo Bills, where they threw it 3 times, Bill Belichick will come up with a game plan where Mac Jones throws 45 times and they win 38-28. Who's your pick this week, Neil?
We saw how ridiculously unbalanced from a play calling point of view the Buffalo Bills were last week. It was Josh Allen, 300 passing yards and 100 rushing yards, joining some elite company as people who've done that. They're playing the Panthers this week, I believe, and the Carolina Panthers have been very, very generous to running backs this week. So I think as a statement to show that they can, the Bills are going to get their running backs more involved this week in the running game. And I think Devin Singletary will be a top 12 fantasy option among running backs this week.
Love it. We both gone. See what happened last week. We're doing the opposite this week. Love that kind of attitude. That's it for this week. Before we do our plugs for other things, what I would say is, don't forget, not only have you got the Thursday game, which is a magnificent game, Chiefs at Chargers, you also have 2 games on Saturday. Well, one on Saturday night, 9:30, and one Sunday morning. So don't forget that you need to set those lineups early, and you need to keep a major eye on Raiders-Browns, as half of the Browns roster at the moment, including their starting quarterback, their wide receiver 1, and others, and head coach are in COVID protocols. Neil, where can people catch you until we're back next week?
Till we're back next week, you can follow me on Twitter at Indutton13. You can read my Super Bowl odds tracker article for Number Fire. You can see my tight end report for RotoViz, which may be a little bit out of date, as one of the streamers I suggested was Austin Hooper. You can also see a little bit more, or hear a little bit more, of my fantasy report of these 3 players on the Nat Coombs show on Sunday.
Fantastic, Neil. Touchdown review came out yesterday. Spoke to Taib Abu. We talked multiple players, and also gave a little chat on the Jim Caldwell life and what it was like as a Browns fan, a Lions fan, to be with Jim Caldwell. I had a boy in Joe Valenzuela talking Browns, and a little bit of noise about AFC North division. That was obviously before half of his team disappeared. Spoke to Thomas Willoughby, who was back from his own version of COVID protocols to talk about Matt Rule, and then had Ollie Hodgkinson from Draft Network and the College Chaps, PFN and the College Chaps, being basically a beautiful mind and telling me so much about bowl games and AP first, second and third team players who will ball out next year in the NFL. Fantastic stuff.
Did you know that there's a Jimmy Kimmel Bowl?
Yes, I did, and we talked about it. And Ollie highlighted it as an excellent game to watch. It's the Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl. Yes, I knew that.
Brilliant.
Neil is at Endon13. I am at Mainz7. Combined, we are at waxing_lyrical. Fancy playoffs are upon us. Either get in or get in the final. Enjoy.
Or get out.
Oh, yeah, or get out, yeah. And these top guys are out.